Hey guys, I'm Steve with DQ'd Barbecue, and today we're going to be making some baby back ribs. Y'all stick around. So today we're going to be doing baby back ribs. And since this is our first YouTube video, I thought it'd be fun to do it on my Weber kettle, which is the first cooker I ever smoked any ribs on. Now, those ribs weren't the most tender, and I definitely over smoked them. But with a little time and some practice over the years, I think we're going to turn out something pretty fantastic today. Alright, so to get these ribs flavored up, we're just going to go with the classic barbecue flavor that you think of when you think of sweet, sticky baby back ribs. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do with your stack of ribs is if you see anything that you don't like, go ahead and trim that off. Little pieces of fat or maybe some hanging meat. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull the membrane off. Now I know some people who go ahead and skip this step because they say it doesn't matter and that's just going to disintegrate during the cook anyways. But in my experience, when I'm looking for that most flavorful, super tender, fall off the bone meat that we can produce, this membrane is just standing in the way of it all. So once we get that membrane off, we're going to go ahead and rub down both sides of these ribs with a coat of yellow mustard. Now some people will use olive oil and some people use hot sauce. To me it really doesn't make a difference. The mustard to me just doesn't come through in the end of the cook, and it's a great binder. Now we're going to start on the bone side of these ribs, and the rub we're going to use today is Famous Dave's Rib Rub. Now you can find this at pretty much any grocery store, but it's just got those classic barbecue flavors you're looking for, and it's nice and easy. The last thing I do, just to add a little bit of heat on the top side, is I like to add a little bit of ground chipotle pepper just to give it that extra kick. Alright, we got these ribs seasoned up, they're looking pretty good. We're going to head out now, check the pit, make sure the temp's sitting where we want it to be. Then I'm going to get back inside and clean this table up before my wife sees it. Okay, so we're going to cook these ribs today in the classic 3-2-1 method on our Weber, and we're going to set it for indirect heat. Now you can set your grill up for this with just careful placement of your coals on one side and the use of a water pan. But what I've got today is a device called the Smokinator. Now all this is a piece of steel with access to dump your coals in, and it's going to act as our heat sink to keep that direct heat off our ribs, while allowing that smoke we've got going to flavor the meat, and to cook and also help stabilize those temperatures. It's got that water pan on top. Now if you're looking for something like this today, the Smokinator does a great job, but there's also a product out there by Adrenaline Barbecue called the Slow and Sear. And from what I've seen, everyone seems to love that product as well. I'll put links for both in the description below. So we're going to load our grill down with some coals I've already got hot in a chimney using the mini method. And we're going to put these on top of some existing coals to allow them to light slowly. Okay, our grill's up to about the 250 degree mark. Now that might be a little bit hotter than you were expecting, but I like to get those ribs falling off the bone or close to it if I can do it. And I find that 3-2-1 method still works great. We just have to crank the temps up a little bit. Now we'll go ahead and add a couple of chunks of applewood. Don't get crazy here, because in my opinion one of the worst things you can do to a piece of barbecue is oversmoke it and leave it with that bitter taste. Hey, you're investing a lot of time in this cook. Just be patient, and until you figure out that exact right amount of smoke for you, always remember less is more. Okay, we got our smoke rolling. Our tip is stable on our grill at 250. Now let's go ahead and get our ribs on. Now we're going to leave them out here for 3 hours. Just watch our temps, and if they fluctuate, that's fine. Now if they start to drop or spike above the 20 degree range, that's when I'm going to come out and start adjusting my vents. But for now, let's just let them do what they're going to do. Okay, so we got our ribs on. We're going to let the temps come back up and stabilize. They dropped some before we took the lid off. That's fine on a Weber kettle. Once they come up and stabilize, we're just going to watch them, make sure they stay around that 250 mark, plus or minus, like I said, around 20. And as long as that happens, we'll see you in 3 hours. Y'all stick around. All right, so our ribs have been on the cooker here for 3 hours at 250. It's time to take a look at them and see what they're looking like. All right, we're looking pretty good. We got our mahogany color forming up. I'd say it's time to get these inside and get them wrapped up. We'll see y'all in a second. Okay, so it's time to get our ribs wrapped up. And the way I like to do it is the way I saw Johnny Trigg do it on the show Barbecue Pitmasters a few years ago. I mean, they called the man the Godfather of Ribs. I figure I ought to listen to what he's doing.
So there's something you should probably know about me, and that is I like my ribs to be like candy. So when I start the wrap, I'm going to initially lay down a good layer of brown sugar. And I mean a pretty good layer. I'm not kidding about the candy thing. Once we get, enough brown sugar laid down for my likings, we're going to go ahead and use some Parquet. lay that down to get that buttery flavor in there. Now the last thing we're going to do, a lot of people like to use honey at this point, but I'm just not a huge fan of honey. So I decided to go with agave nectar a few years ago, liked the taste, haven't really looked back since. Now once we get that agave nectar laid down, we're going to go ahead and take our ribs, flip them meat side down right in the middle of that. And then we're just going to go ahead and do the exact same process on the back, in reverse. So we'll go agave nectar, butter, brown sugar. Once we've got our back covered up, it's time to close with the wrap. With the slight addition of, I like to add a little bit of apple juice. It's not an uncommon thing. It just helps getting that steaming process going and keeps our stuff nice and tender.
Alright guys, we're back out here at the grill, and I've already adjusted my vents because the rest of this cook, we're going to keep this grill at 275 degrees. Now I know, when you talk to the competition guys, they're cooking their ribs at 225, 235 is what you commonly hear. Well, I don't really feel like eating competition ribs today. I want ribs I'm going to be able to eat with a fork. Blasphemous as that may be, that's what I'm kind of feeling today. So I've stoked a fire, which I need to on this kettle. It won't go 6 hours without me adding some coals. I've adjusted the vents, got our ribs wrapped up. We're gonna throw them on here, let them get happy, and we'll see y'all in 2 hours. All right, y'all, it's been 2 more hours. It's time for my favorite part. Let's get these off, get them inside, and get them glazed up. We'll see y'all in a bit. All right, so our ribs have been going for 5 hours now. We just took them off after being wrapped in foil for 2 hours, and you can see some of these bones are already the pop out. That's exactly what I'm looking for. But as we know in the 3-2-1 method, we still got 1 more hour to go, and that's a glaze. Now, I whipped up a little bit of Sweet Baby Ray's, just reduced down with some apple juice, and the whole point of that was just to make it thin for me. Now you could add some other flavors at this point if you want to, but me, that's just what I like, and it never fails. As soon as someone figures out that I like to do barbecue, they always ask me if I make my own sauce, and the truth is, I just enjoy Sweet Baby Ray's so much I haven't had the need to yet, but maybe that's something we'll do in the future, who knows. So all we're gonna do for this is just make sure we get everything coated up real nice. Matter of fact, I like my ribs a little extra saucy, so we're gonna make sure we get a good dose of sauce on both front and back of these. Now, if you like your ribs more saucy or less saucy, obviously this is all up to you and brand of barbecue sauce and all that, but this is how I like them, and I'm just making them for myself and my family tonight, so this is how we're gonna do them. All right, we're almost done. Just got these glazed up. We're gonna put them back on the pit for an hour, and then it's time to try them. We're gonna go put it out. See y'all in about an hour. All right, guys, it's been a cold day in December. My dog even showed up, but we're in the home stretch here. The last 15 minutes, I like to go ahead and just throw a little bit more glaze on my ribs. We've already set the previous glaze, but just for that little extra punch before we take them inside here in a few, just go ahead and hit the tops one more time. Just try to give that little extra bit of flavor before we go in. All right, I think that'll do it. We'll close the lid back up, let this sit back up again. Next time we see you, we'll be cutting open some ribs. Hang out. All right, so we finally got our ribs off. We've had them here on the cutting board for about 5 minutes, letting them rest. Now before I cut into these, I just want to leave you with a couple takeaways from today's cook. First one is, just because you don't have a dedicated smoker, you don't have several $1,000s in a rig, doesn't mean you can't cook some great barbecue as long as you set up for indirect and just be patient through it. The second is, even though it can be tempting, don't over smoke your Q. I promise you, you'd much rather have with a little less smoke taste than to put hours into a cook and come out with something tasting bitter. Now finally, just because conventional wisdom says to cook certain things at certain temperatures for a certain amount of time, if that's not the Q that you're looking for, don't be afraid to shift some variables and see if you can't get it. All right, I've stalled on these as long as I can. Now we got to take a look and see what we got inside. It's falling apart. I'm on top of a bone. Oh my goodness. So I told y'all I wanted some fall apart ribs, and that's about what I got. If you take a look there, you see there's a healthy layer of smoke ring if you can see it. All right, now the true test though was I said I wanted to be able to eat some ribs with a fork. Oh, it just came right off the bone there. That's what I'm looking for. Let's see if we can get a little taste. A little bit of that bark. That's spot on for what I'm looking for. It's got just that classic barbecue taste. My ribs, I like them to taste like candy. You can definitely see that brown sugar that I put on there earlier. And just that little hint of the extra chipotle on top comes through just barely for you. Thank you all for coming and hanging out with me today. Coming along for this cook. Hey, if you like what we did here, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. If y'all noticed, there's a second rack of ribs that we cooked that's not on this cutting board. And I'm gonna do something a little more non-traditional with them. So y'all keep an eye out for that next video that's coming out. Till then, y'all take it easy.